Hi again, it's Miss Cone. So, before you listen to this chapter, make sure you've done the work and make sure you made a prediction about what you think Sam is going to find out about his past. I have so many things going through my head. I'm very interested to see what you think. So, this chapter, number 22, is called Heart Island. Guys, we only have 2 more chapters left. This is getting so exciting. So, Chapter 22, Heart Island. Here we go. They crossed a bridge into Ganaqui on the Canadian side of the St. Lawrence. Mac parked the truck and they sat on a bench near the water. The bag with Onji's lunch lay between them as they waited for a ferry to take them to the castle. Sam glanced out of the pier at the wisps of mist that rose above the river and watched a small boat slapped by the waves as Mac began to talk. We lived on the American side, and I kept the sailboat there, he said. But we always came to this town, to Gan, Lydia, and Onji and I. He talked slowly, looking out at the water. There was a bulletin board every summer, telling who'd caught the largest muskie. He put his hand on Sam's shoulder. That's not important. The muskie was more important than Mac knew. The word muskie. Hadn't it brought them here? The picture of the sailboat was in Sam's pocket, and he pulled it out, seeing it tremble slightly in his fingers. Mac ran his hand over it, almost the way Anima had run hers over the sweater. My boat. He turned to face Sam. How did you find it? Sam hesitated. I climbed up into the attic. You went up the pipe? I lied about it afterwards. He stopped and began again. I'm sorry about that, about the lying. The pipe, Mac repeated. And you found everything that was there? The little boat? I meant to give it back to you someday. But as time went on, it got harder, and you never asked. No one else could have built that boat. Mac put his arm around Sam. There's so much more to tell. He stopped and pointed. In the distance, a gleaming white ferry had appeared on the river, its horn sounding, a familiar sound. Mac sighed. When I was young, I was always angry. Angry over foolish things. Angry until I brought you home to Anima and Onji. And then the anger seeped out of me like sap from a tree. But it was too late to mend things with my daughter. It's my worst regret. Wait a minute. We didn't know that Mac had a daughter. Let's keep that in mind. That's super interesting. I wonder what Sam is thinking. Does Sam have a sister? I don't know. Does Sam have a mother? I don't know. So many questions running through my head. Mac sighed. I'm going to reread that. When I was young, I was always angry. Angry over foolish things. Angry until I brought you home to Anima and Onji. And then the anger seeped out of me like sap from a tree. But it was too late to mend things with my daughter. It's my worst regret. His daughter, so Sam's mother. The ferry had angled its way to the pier. The blast of the horn was all that could be heard. Above the ferry, they climbed to the top deck. The mist was stronger. Sheets of it spread across the water as the ship pulled out, slowly, almost lumbering. Mac was talking about the castle now. Bolt was the name of a man who changed the shape of the island into a heart for his wife. And you'll see the stone deer called hearts. They passed islands and then went under a bridge that curved upward like a steel cobweb. It must have been the bridge that Onji had described. And there, suddenly, was the castle Sam had dreamed about. 300 men worked there every day, Max said. But the day George Balt's young wife died, everything stopped. He never went back. They left the ferry and climbed a gravel path. Years later, I was one of the workers who began to restore it, Max said. So this castle that Sam had always been dreaming about, Mac used to work building it. Sam glanced up at the towers, the roofs like cones, the narrow windows cut into the stone. If only Caroline had seen it. Mac was smiling down at him, nodded. Yes, it's like yours. They wandered through the rooms. It was cold inside, but there was a fire in the massive fireplace. They sat on a bench watching the flames, and Mac took a breath. You came here often. Your mother brought you. You'd follow me. The sound of your footsteps so loud, going up the stairs and down. You watched everything, squeezing in to see me hammer. If only he could remember. So we're learning now that Mac used to work, right? He used to work with this castle, building this castle, and Mac's daughter, or Sam's mother, would bring Sam every day. If only he could remember. Everything was my fault, Mac said. We argued over something, my daughter and I left and went to Florida. I'm going to reread that. Everything was my fault, Mac said. We argued over something, my daughter and I left and went to Florida. I lost my daughter, lost you, lost everything. Okay, so Mac's daughter, right? That's Sam's mom. So Mac left, went to Florida, and he left Sam and his mother. I'm wondering how they came into contact again. Wait, Sam felt his teeth going into his lip. Mac's word echoed in your head. Your mother brought you. I lost my daughter. I lost you. Sam's clenched hands went up to his face. He knew he didn't have to wait to be told. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. My mother, he began at last, was your daughter? Was really your daughter? Mac turned, shock in his eyes. Julia, of course. How could you not have known? I built a little boat for you in the kitchen. Something was filling Sam's chest, growing, coming up into his throat. He opened his mouth and a sound came out. Mac's arms were tight around him, the heat from the fireplace warming him. Oh, Sam, Mac said. Sam was crying now, but whatever had filled his chest began to melt, to seep away with the tears, like sap from a tree. It was your voice shouting. When? Mac said. At the children's home, banging doors one after another. Ah, yes, I was so angry, Mac said, in a rage, at women. How can I ever tell you? How can I explain? When your mother died, no one knew where I was, so a neighbor took you to the home. But then they found me. He ran his hand over his face. Shocking, the packet that came in the mail. A loving note from Julia, written just before she died. And legal papers giving me the right to take care of you, to raise you. Gonna pause there. So, Sam did live in the children's home on 11th Street. That was a real memory he had. But he lived there because we're learning that when his mom died, they didn't know where Mac was. So Sam didn't have anyone to take care of him. So a nice lady put him in this children's home. But then Mac came to take him out. And that's where that anger starts yelling in the children's home, all of these memories. Let's see if we find out more about when Mac got to take Sam back. He was quiet for a moment. I'd missed you, thought about you both all the time. Sam wiped his face with his sleeve. It was all right. I was going to be all right. I came up on a boat to get you. I never stopped, never slept. You'd been in the home for almost a month, and that night the women wouldn't let me have you. I'm tired, she said. Come back tomorrow. I waved the court papers in front of her. I said you weren't going to stay there one more night, not one more hour. Legal or not, you'll wait until tomorrow. He's in bed, and that's where I'm going soon. I'm not getting any child ready now. I've done my work for the day. Sam pictured her face. She had lines across her forehead, and her hair was flat against her head. That terrible place. Mac raised his hand to his chest. I can't tell you how angry I felt. That's something inside. I took the stairs 2 at a time and opened the door after another. You called, shouted. I wrapped you in a sweater and scooped you up in my arms, you and the boat, and went downstairs. Night cat, you said. Sam nodded, remembering the stairs, tilting his arms out, wanting the cat. The woman blocked the way into the kitchen, where Julia's cat was cowering under the table. Blocked the way until she saw my face. I'm going to pause. So Night Cat was Sam's mom. So it was Julia's cat. I hope Sam was able to get his cat back. They sat back, the flames crackling in the great room of the castle. Mac's eyes were closed. He seemed out of breath. I took you to the boat, Mac said. I remember the sound of the foghorn, Sam said. I was too angry to think straight, or I wouldn't have taken you out in the storm. We went onto the rocks, the hull split, and the boat went under. All of it. We were in the water, and I reached out for you and the cat. Somehow you'd held on to the little boat I made. Mac's mouth was unsteady. I nearly lost you the second time. They went outside then, Sam feeling the wonder of it all. They watched the moat below, the boathouse across the way, swirls of mist. We took a train then to Onji and Anima, Mac said. Both of us were soaked, the cat shivering. There was a nurse who sat nearby and bandaged my leg. I never thought what people would think. And then I carried you the last mile, and they were waiting, and you were safe. Safe. I told myself I'd never go near the water again, Mac said. I'd never have a boat again. He smiled at Sam. The next day, we heard about the newspaper report. He shook his head. Onji and I went back to let them know we were alive. What Sam was feeling inside was a burst of happiness. He and Mac belonged together. Julia was his mother, Lydia his grandmother. He realized what Mac had said, never have a boat again. He pulled his hand on Mac's sleeve. Don't say that. Let's build a boat, the two of us, together. All right, and that's the end of chapter 22. So I think Sam just got so many questions answered. I just got so many questions answered. I hadn't read this book before. I just learned so many things. I don't want to forget all the things that I learned, so I'm going to jot them down in my notebook, and I hope you do the same because we just got so much information. All right, go enjoy doing the rest of your work, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Bye.